Well, good morning, and thank you all for being here today on this fantastic occasion. It's a great day to me to be a Mississippian. Almost 7 months ago, I stood at this podium alongside Ryan Miller to provide you with an update on Mississippi's workforce development efforts. Today, I'm glad to stand here with him again and provide you another update. Last week, Accelerate Mississippi marked its one-year anniversary as our state's lead office for workforce development. In those 12 months, our state and this office have accomplished a tremendous amount. In the 7 months since the last press conference, Accelerate Mississippi has laid a foundation aimed at helping Mississippians obtain the skills they need to find meaningful work, earn above average wages, and to succeed. Mississippi's greatest asset is its people. We are a hard-working bunch who are committed to doing whatever it takes to provide for our families. We take pride in what we do, and we take pride in what we build. We believe Made in Mississippi is more than just a label. It's a way of life. And we find dignity in labor and the pride of a job well done after a hard day's work. To compete in today's global economy, we must continue to allocate resources in a way that maximizes our return on investment. Mississippi must continue to find the best ways to get the most bang for its buck. I cannot think of a better, wiser way to do this other than investing in our people. When I first took office, I promised that this administration would be for all Mississippi, that we would do whatever it took to raise incomes and to increase opportunity for all Mississippians. I was proud to sign into law the greatest piece of workforce development legislation in Mississippi's history, legislation that kicked off the long journey to prepare our people for the jobs of the next 50 years, not the jobs of the last 50 years. It was legislation that highlighted our state's unwavering desire to be bold in our efforts to train Mississippians. For years, our state has been committed to developing a skilled and a capable workforce. However, for many of those years, our efforts were unorganized, uncoordinated, and quite frankly, disjointed. But this office has brought a focused, coordinated, and strategic approach to the different efforts that existed. Since I signed that legislation a couple of years ago, creating the Office of Workforce Development, Accelerate Mississippi has hit the ground running. I guess you could say that Accelerate Mississippi is doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. They're accelerating Mississippi. And while Accelerate is running the race, we also realize that workforce development isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. Y'all know I'd much rather do things right than do them quick, and unfortunately, this is taking time. That's exactly what we've been doing over the last 12 months, is getting our ducks in a row to do this the right way. In today's society that rewards instant gratification, it's tough to be patient and to stay the course. But that's exactly what's happening here. Since Ryan took over the office, he has staffed the core executive team. He brought together a team that best reflected the needs of the regions that would be served. He coalesced expertise from the fields of education and economic development. And in so doing, he has laid the groundwork for long-term success. We also know that different parts of our state have unique needs. The Gulf Coast faces different opportunities and different challenges than the Mississippi Delta, and each deserves to have a unique and tailored approach to successfully developing a workforce strategy. Recognizing this, we promised in our last update that Accelerate would identify and categorize different ecosystems that exist throughout Mississippi. Over the last few months, They released a comprehensive analysis which broke the state into 8 ecosystems. These are defined and connected by their unique infrastructure, connectivity, population density, and other factors. Each ecosystem also has at least 2 community colleges. These institutions will play an integral role in the coordinated effort to uplift all of these individual regions and connect Mississippians with the necessary technical skills needed to succeed. The Accelerate team hosted the first meeting with leaders from each of these ecosystems last month, and I look forward to continued updates on this effort to coordinate region-specific workforce development efforts. I made clear when I was campaigning for governor that one of my priorities was to increase capacity for community college programs that were in high demand. Thanks to our efforts, Accelerate has done just that. As of this month, they've already awarded approximately $16.6 million towards wet fund special projects. And I'd like to take just a minute to highlight a few of these. We expanded 5 diesel tech programs at 5 community colleges across the state. This expansion will allow Mississippi to train over 75 new students each year. At 6 different community colleges, we expanded our capacity to train new utility line workers. This expansion will allow Mississippi to train over 100 new students each year. At Colin Community College and at Mississippi Delta Community College, we established brand new fiber programs that will eventually train 150 new students each year. And at Pearl River Community College, we created a new sonography program and a night nursing program that will be key to build our pipeline of healthcare professionals. All of these have concrete implications. These are all high-demand jobs, and we're going to help Mississippians fill these positions. And while training Mississippians may be our most important task and our heaviest lift, it's not the only thing we must do to implement a successful workforce development strategy. To maximize our impact, we need to find ways to reach people and to connect them with available career opportunities. That's why I'm proud to announce today Accelerate Mississippi's newest pilot, a technology platform powered by Good Job. This program seeks to use modern technology and machine learning to connect people with new job opportunities. This is one more arrow in the quiver that will help Mississippians to find high-paying jobs that are uniquely tailored to their needs, to their wants, and to their experiences. Now, I'd like to turn the mic and the podium over to Ryan to give us an update and an on-the-ground assessment about Accelerate Mississippi, Good Job, and the work they're doing for the great state of Mississippi. Ryan?
Governor, thank you very much. And Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, thank you for being here as well. I appreciate both of y'all's passion, encouragement, and certainly the trust that you've put in our office. It has not gone unnoticed, and we're grateful for that. I want to thank my team that's here as well, Dr. Courtney Taylor, Dr. Nathan Oakley, Garrett McInnes, Marianne Myers, Aaron Gordon, Yolanda Boone, and Bill Rennick. I'm grateful that over the course of this last year, I've gotten to work with you and learn from you every day, and it's a joy and a privilege to do that. I want to thank you all for being here as well. This is important. I appreciate the opportunity to talk and communicate with you. I know it's a busy season for you, and you have a lot going on, but it means a lot to be able to engage in this conversation, and I look forward to getting to visiting with you about these topics as well as others as they relate to workforce. As the governor said, it's been a year. Not that I'm counting, but last week was the 1-year anniversary, and I can tell you from the moment I took this job, it's been a breakneck pace. The 15 extra pounds and the gray hair on my head that seems to be showing up every day are a testament to that, but it's worth it. This has been an exhilarating experience, at times terrifying at the enormity of the task, but important nonetheless. It has truly been a joy of mine. I can tell you from the first day I recognized my job was to better understand the current condition of workforce in the state of Mississippi. Strategy development, strategy deployment, resources that we had around the state, programs that were designed, or at least we hoped were designed to help move the workforce needle. And my job was to assess what is the current condition and how do we push ourselves to improve. We adopted the Kaizen thought process of continuous improvement, borrowed that from our friends in the manufacturing industry to figure out ways to identify how we can improve. We're never done. You might be doing things well, but there's always a way to make those better, and we think we must do that in our role here at Accelerate Mississippi if we're really going to elevate the state of Mississippi the way we'd like to. And over the course of the year of understanding that current condition, driving back and forth across the state, we've had a privilege to get to talk to so many people and so many partners in an attempt to push that continuous improvement. And it became very apparent to us that we have two customer bases that we serve. Two very important. The governor has already mentioned one of those. It's the people of the state of Mississippi. We serve men and women, young and old, who want a better career, who want better opportunities. They might not have a job, or they might be in a job that they understand is temporary. It wasn't meant to be a career. How do we provide them resources to put them on a higher trajectory? How do we get them in a position where they see the path that leads them to better prosperity, to generational wealth, to familial wealth in households that may have never experienced that before? How do we serve that customer base? Single moms who need resources to help with their child care, to get them to educational opportunities, training opportunities that may be in non-traditional hours. How do we help them get to take advantage of those paths and those opportunities? How do we help those who are incarcerated and soon to rejoin the population? How do we provide them resources so that they can turn a new leaf and provide for their communities and find a way to find meaning and passion and purpose? We serve that customer base. And at the same time, we recognize we serve another customer base, our industry and business. There are a great many wonderful businesses throughout the state of Mississippi that want to grow. They want to expand. They want to thrive. Economic development is certainly a part of what we try to pay attention to. We work with our friends at MDA and through all the different regional offices and individual offices of economic development to better understand our customer base of business and industry. How do we help provide them the tools to grow and thrive? But at the end of the day, and what brings us here today, is to talk about what we intend to do with our two customer bases. Our job is to reduce the gap, connect them more appropriately, more effectively, and in ways that maximizes the potential both for the employee as well as the employer. Now, how do we do that? We develop tools for the toolbox. I like to fish, so I'll refer to the tackle box. We need new lures in the tackle box to help bridge that gap and bring those customer bases together. Those tools can take the form of legislation. The governor alluded to that earlier. Certainly appreciate the work of the Senate, Senator David Parker. Certainly appreciate Speaker Gunn of the House and Representative Donnie Bell, all the work that they put into helping us navigate my first legislative session, which is where a lot of these gray hairs came from, in an effort to develop tools. Legislation is a tool. Partnerships are a tool. We work with great nonprofit partners. We work with other state agencies like DHS and MDES, trying to find ways to better coordinate what we do. That's a tool, or that's a lure in the tackle box. But we also have partnerships to develop specific lures or tools that we think are unique and innovative, which is what brings us here today. I'm excited to announce today that we have a partnership between Accelerate Mississippi, the Skills Foundation, and the tech company Good Job to deploy a tool that I think is innovative, and it allows for us to, in a very creative way, bridge that gap. Good Job is I don't even want to say a job search or job posting platform, because we immediately kind of come to this idea of what we think that is. Those are ubiquitous. We see those every day on commercials. We see job posting sites and job search engines all over the place. This is something different. Not only can a potential employee, somebody who wants to find that path, log on to Good Job and find a career opportunity, but it does it in a unique way that maximizes the potential of finding a good fit for them. Not just a job, a good job and a career. Likewise, employers can post their jobs, and they can do the ubiquitous job posting with job qualifications, educational experience, preferred qualifications, but it goes beyond that. Good Job is a tool that asks you a series of questions beyond your education, beyond your training. It focuses on your purpose, your approach, your thinking, your habits. It's behavioral psychology. to better determine who you are and what you want out of a career. How do you solve problems? How do you work with others? How do you resolve conflict? What is it that you want from a career? There's a series of behavioral questions that they ask you beyond just uploading your resume that develops a profile of who you are as a potential employee and what you want out of a career, that high trajectory growth. What is it? These are questions that really narrow down who you are. And likewise, a company has to take the same assessment or a similar assessment where they have their employees develop profiles that they can then compile and come up with an ideal candidate for this position. It's behavioral science. Now, I'm not smart enough to be able to tell you the algorithms involved, but there's a lot of math and a lot of computer science involved that then will match that potential employee with that potential company. It's a simple social media construct of if you want to work for this company, swipe right. If you don't want to, move on for looking at other opportunities, swipe left. This is an opportunity for Mississippians to understand what is it I want, what is my passion point, what is my purpose in my career, and it allows companies to better determine what is our company culture and who's the best fit for it and how do we find them. We're excited that on our website, AccelerateMS.org, and certainly through this amazingly huge QR code that we have in here, that people can access this tool to begin that path, to begin that process, to begin that adventure. Find out who you are as an employee. Find out what you want from your job, what you want from your career. Get connected. Reduce that gap. Bridge the gap between you and an employer in the state of Mississippi who wants you and wants you desperately, but not just as an employee, but as a teammate, a family member. We have such high hopes, and we think that this potentially could change a great deal for us in the state. I want to stress this, though. It is not a silver bullet. This is not the panacea. This is not the end-all solution. It is just another lure in the tackle box, but it's a good one. And we really believe that it could do some amazing things. This phase 1 rollout is involving some companies that have partnered with us to try this. We want to assess it. I want to make a promise to you that our job is to not just deploy it and then come back a few years later and hope that it worked. It's to regularly review, how is this doing? How is it working? Do we need to tweak something? Do we need to improve it? Always looking for ways to continuously improve what we do. We're excited. I look forward to sharing more about it with you in the coming months because we think that this certainly could be a game changer for us and certainly be an additional tool and resource to do what we were designed to do, bring our customer bases together. Governor, I appreciate your willingness to share this time, and I'm grateful to participate in such a wonderful occasion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Just last week, I stood here with many of our partners in the legislature and announced that Sally Doty would be the first leader of our Office of Broadband. And one of the things that I said with respect to that is while we had a lot of entities doing some of that, that we needed someone who woke up every single day focused on expanding access to broadband to Mississippians. And I cited last week the Office of Workforce Development and Ryan Miller as an example of having someone, and in his case, multiple someones that get up every single day thinking about how do we develop programs to improve workforce development and workforce training. Mississippi today has the lowest unemployment rate in our state's history. And that's good. And I could stand up here and brag about that and do nothing else. However, we recognize, as Ryan mentioned earlier, the importance of our customers, the most important of which are our people. And even though we have the lowest unemployment rate in our state's history, and I'm proud of that fact, there's still 3 categories of individuals that we need to continue to focus on. Number 1, those few individuals that are currently unemployed. Number 2, it is those individuals that should be in the workforce but are not. And then number 3 is those individuals in Mississippi who are already employed but have potential upward mobility in terms of what skills they can learn or even what skills they currently have, and how do we place them in a situation where they can access that upward mobility so they can get other jobs that are available that pay higher wages. And it turns out when you consider all 3 of those different categories, That's basically 100% of all Mississippians. And so we are working very hard to continue that. And what I will tell you is that I'm extremely proud the range of steps that Ryan and his team at Accelerate Mississippi have taken. And I'm extremely proud of the additional work that has been done during this legislative session. Ryan mentioned it earlier, and I want to reiterate. Senator Parker and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman in the Senate have led the effort for each of these bills that have been passed, some of which I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes. Speaker Gunn and Representative Bell on the House side, all of these individuals have done tremendous work helping us move this ball down the field. I'll remind you that it was back in March that I signed House Bill 1388. House Bill 1388 was the Comprehensive Career and Technical Education Reform Act, and it establishes a pilot K-12 career coaching program. You know, in the legislative process, it's not always easy, and this was a concept that Representative Bell has been working on for many years, and it was a concept that I personally have supported from the beginning, but it was critical that we got it right. And the bill that came before the House and the Senate that was voted on overwhelmingly that I signed back in March gives us the ability to ensure that our students in the K-12 environment get mentorship and guidance. I believe that by helping to provide purpose-driven direction towards skills and job opportunities, we can better prepare our students to graduate from high school with a proper understanding of the career fields available to them. Currently, 25% approximately of those who graduate high school in Mississippi go on to college. That means there are 75% of them that choose not to. The fact of the matter is that there are great opportunities available to those who choose not to, and we need to make sure that they understand what those opportunities are. This will ensure that career and technical education courses in the K-12 environment work with our community colleges to ensure that those programs are aligned and therefore most effectively helping our students. In addition to that, Accelerate will continue to work with partner agencies to conduct an analysis of the ROI of these CTE programs in order to ensure their effectiveness. One of the things that we have worked hard with the legislature on is in the past, perhaps, we had a lot of good intentions and we spent a lot of money in a lot of different areas, but we never really did the hard work of measuring which programs were successful and which ones were not. I can assure you that with respect to these CTE programs, we're going to do exactly that. We're going to measure their effectiveness, and to the extent they are effective, it will be my goal to invest more. To the extent that they are not, it will be my goal to no longer invest money in those programs that are not effective, that do not have a positive ROI, and instead find other means by which to do it. I'd also like to mention that right before this press conference, I signed House Bill 1517 and House Bill 1006 into law. House Bill 1517 and 1006 guide ARPA dollars into our workforce development efforts. It includes $32 million for direct training related to healthcare, emerging sectors, logistics, supply chains, and specific populations, such as veterans, those currently or formerly incarcerated, and single parents. In addition, $20 million will be invested in healthcare training infrastructure, and $8 million will be invested in those aforementioned career coaches. This is a profound investment in our workforce, and this is a profound investment in our students. I'd also like to announce that today I'm going to move over to the desk and sign Senate Bill 2723. Senate Bill 2723 is just the latest effort in offering greater flexibility for the use of Mississippi Works funds in order to better support local economic development efforts. It will ensure that we increase collaboration between Accelerate Mississippi, the Mississippi Department of Human Services, and the Mississippi Department of Corrections. As you probably know, and as Ryan certainly knows, over the last year of his tenure and even before that, It has been a desire of mine, a goal of mine, and something that we have implemented, regular meetings and communication across multiple state agencies and multiple state platforms, because in many instances, the people we serve, whether it's at DHS or at the Department of Corrections, have many of the same needs from a workforce development, workforce training standpoint as those that are currently in the workforce. And it is imperative that we have better communication and better collaboration and better coordination between state agencies. And it's something that I believe is really bringing to fruition some of the good ideas that we're now putting into effect. And obviously, Senate Bill 2723 is one example of legislation that's going to help us continue that. It's an excellent bill, and I'm proud to have the opportunity to sign it into law. Senate Bill 2723 is now law. Now, these new pieces of legislation are a tremendous win for Mississippi. We're building a pipeline that will streamline the development of a next-generation workforce. We had fallen behind some of our peers in other states. But with these pieces of legislation, with Ryan's work, with the Accelerate Mississippi team, we are catching up very, very fast. It's all about a comprehensive approach to legislation, a coordination with the local ecosystems, grant investments that are fueling skills-focused development, and more. From teacher pay raises to workforce investments, we are creating an environment that ensures our labor pool is prepared and equipped with the skills needed to take on the jobs of tomorrow. I am proud of all this administration and Accelerate Mississippi have accomplished already, and I look forward to providing another update soon. Again, with that, I want to thank everyone who has been involved in this, certainly our partners in the legislature, Lieutenant Governor Hoseman, Speaker Gunn, Representative Bell, Senator Parker, all the members of the House and the Senate, as well as all of our state agencies and the work that's going in to really bringing our workforce development efforts into this century. So with that, any questions? Scott?
Yes, sir. This comes at the same time the state auditor releases a report about our brain drain, for lack of a better description, the departure of college grads. How do you turn the tide when you have a state that has such a low unemployment rate? How do you move the ball and keep those people from leaving the state?
Well, clearly that's it's something that we continue to work on. Here's the good news with respect to population trends. From 2012 to 2019, we saw negative population growth, or for someone from Florence, what that means is we saw population loss between 2012 and 2019. But over the last 2 years, we've actually seen a net population increase in Mississippi. That's occurred for a couple of reasons. Not the least of which is while the COVID virus had a lot of negative implications, one of the things that it did prove to individuals is that there are many people who can work from anywhere. You don't have to live in New York City or Washington, D.C. To have a technology job. You can work for those companies that exist here, or you can work for companies in other parts of the country but actually be based here in Mississippi. And so we're seeing some of those population trends reverse. Our former Governor Haley Barbour used to love to say, if you're ever in a hole and you want to get out, the best thing you can do first is to stop digging. And so when you think about the population trends doing this, the fact that we've kind of leveled off and we're actually starting to see just slight upticks over the last couple of years, that's encouraging, and we got to build on it. I will tell you that we've got a lot of work to do. I said during my very first inaugural address that my job is not to try to hide our problems. My job is not to try to hide our challenges, but it's to try to fix them. And that's what we focused on over the last couple of years. In Mississippi, we're always going to see some percentage of our college graduates leave the state. And the reason for that is that we have institutions of higher learning here that actually have a majority of their students that are from out of state. It is easier for us to keep someone in Mississippi that is from Houston, Mississippi, than it is to keep someone that is from Houston, Texas. That doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to grow our economy and make sure that we are offering opportunities for those individuals. And I think it's important, and one of the things that you see a major effort on at our community colleges, which I've talked about, that we need to see our 8 institutions of higher learning commit to, and what I mean by that is the monies that we are investing in those specific programs that I mentioned earlier. They may not be, diesel mechanics may not be the career field that everyone wants to talk about, but what we know for sure about diesel mechanics is that there are a whole bunch of jobs available in Mississippi, and they pay a whole bunch of money, literally $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year, 2 or 3 years in. With 2 or 3 years experience, you can make 6 figures as a diesel mechanic. And we have done a study which tells us that over the last 5 years, we've had an average of about 500 diesel mechanic positions in our state that have gone unfilled. That's why we're now investing money to train diesel mechanics, because we know how much it pays and we know that we have job openings available. I mentioned that to say one of the things as we continue to build this out is we've got to make sure that our colleges, our institutions of higher learning, are offering the kind of opportunities for 4-year degrees that when individuals finish their degree, that there are those kinds of jobs available in our state. As an example, we know for a fact that if you go to a 4-year school in Mississippi and you get a teaching certificate, ultimately, there are teaching jobs available in every region of our state. If you go into the healthcare field, there are opportunities available in every region of our state. And so we clearly have to continue to focus on training more of those individuals at the collegiate level, and we'll continue to do so. But we still have work to do there, and we certainly know that. Taylor.
This legislation is requiring Accelerate to collaborate with state agencies, but is this changing how the dollars can be spent?
I'm gonna let Ryan take that.
Sure. So, I think it's important to understand how our office functions fiscally. Accelerate Mississippi is funded by the unemployment insurance tax, and there's a portion of that is then put into 3 different buckets. One is the workforce enhancement training dollars that we utilize with our community college partners and have done so, I think, in some very exciting ways over the past year. Another is in the Mississippi Works dollars, which has typically been used in economic development projects. And the other is in an operational account for our office. And so what 2723 does, it doesn't really change those buckets, but it does give us the opportunity, just like with workforce enhancement training funds. Over the last year, working with the Community College Board, individual community colleges, having been in continual communication with the presidents there, and working with an outside accounting firm. How do we do this better? The continuous improvement model. Let's review the process. Is there a way that we can maximize the effectiveness of these dollars the way that they were intended, and at the same time hold them accountable, make sure that we're doing it above board, making sure that the process is such that we can truly ensure the effectiveness of the program. So it doesn't really change those buckets, it doesn't change how we're funded, but it gives us the latitude to look at the process and review how that process plays out and make adjustments as we need based upon what we see the need being with our 2 customer bases.
The only thing I will add to that, the legislation is a very good piece of legislation. The combination of these various things, the part of it that requires the collaboration between state agencies, it's fine to have it in statute. It doesn't really matter. We're going to do that anyway. But what I will tell you is the piece that gives the Accelerate Mississippi the ability and the flexibility to invest in programs, it also requires not only the accountability that is necessary, but also it ensures that because we have to work with our friends in the legislature, that if we can prove that flexibility leads to more people working in our state and more people working at higher paying jobs, thus our per capita incomes rising, then we have justification to go back to those who control the purse strings in the legislature and ask for more money for job training. And that's the ultimate goal, is to continue to see increased investments over many years, so that we're not, while we certainly want to continue to invest in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade, we also want to continue to see similar increases in investments at the whole lifelong learning phase of the educational process, which includes community colleges, IHL, and these training programs that exist both within the public sector but also in private nonprofits and other areas as well.
Discussion about forgivable loans right now on the national level, and there's been some efforts in this state on healthcare driven programs. Your thoughts on that and moving that direction?
Well, I think you have two very different scenarios here, because I want to make sure that we differentiate. Some of the forgivable loans are in Washington, D.C. that the Democrats are pushing. These are contractual relationships that were put into effect where individuals borrow money from the federal government, and there are some who are trying to get the federal government to forgive that debt. So that's one thing. What we're talking about in some of these there's only a couple of these forgivable loan programs that we are offering, and we've done it, for example, for primary care physicians for many years. And I've been a strong advocate of that. One of the things that we know, it is in the public policy best interest of the state to have more primary care physicians in more rural areas across Mississippi. And so what we say on the front end is to these docs or potential docs that are going into med school in the Rural Physician Scholarship Program, is that if you will commit to go practice medicine for a certain period of time in a certain region of the state that we know is underserved, then it is in the best interest of the state from a policy perspective to reward you for doing so, incentivize you on the front end, and then reward you on the back end by forgiving some of those what would have to be loans that are already given back. But I think there's a real distinction to be made here, and that is the public policy decision made on the front end to incentivize and then ultimately reward those who are making these decisions versus just writing off debt for the purpose of writing it off. Yes.
Hunter Dawkins with the Gazebo Defendant has a question.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Shelby. Governor, just a quick question. As I know that you're very wanting this program to help out through the entire state, where do you think the benefits are, especially since hurricane season is on its way, to helping trying to get people ready for this hurricane season upcoming, and also where will this program work for this format?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question, and I think the most important thing that I'd like to mention, you may remember, Hunter, back in 2019 when I was running for governor, one of the things that I proposed and said that we were going to do is that we were going to recognize that the workforce training needs on the Mississippi Gulf Coast are different than the workforce training needs in the Mississippi Delta, for instance. And in fact, that there are different needs in different regions of the state, different skill levels, and quite frankly, there are different economic development opportunities available in different areas of the state. And so what you'll see, that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier, but we kind of mentioned it very quickly, is that the Accelerate Mississippi has defined the different regions of the state, and they've broke it down into 8. I think I proposed 9 or 10. I don't remember. But it doesn't matter. The number doesn't matter. It's about making sure that we are focused on the specific needs of those individual regions. And so I think what you're going to see as we move forward is we'll take those ecosystems that we are now building out and look at the specific needs from a workforce standpoint that they have, but also we will ultimately develop economic development plans specific to those 8 individual ecosystems and the geographic regions that they face in the state. So for instance, on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we're going to spend a lot of time on long term on training those individuals that can ultimately go into shipbuilding. Well, there aren't a lot of people that are headquartered in the Mississippi Delta that are building ships, and so we probably won't spend a lot of time training potential shipbuilders in the Mississippi Delta unless we know on the front end that if we train them, they're going to move from the Delta and move somewhere else, and that's okay. But that's certainly kind of our approach. Is we want to approach it more with a rifle shot than a shotgun approach, and just say we're going to offer all these different training programs all over the state and hope it works out well. We're identifying specific types of needed employees in these 8 specific regions and developing plans to train people that can, if they choose to, stay in those regions and actually work at higher paying jobs.
Y'all mentioned accountability as part of this. I know the state auditor's office has previously issued demand letters to several groups over allegations of wet funds being misspent with the workforce development program at Itawamba Community College, and there's some criminal charges pending in that. Now, I mean, of course, nothing's been proven in court, but I would just ask, I mean, do y'all think that there are enough safeguards in place with wet funds and workforce development dollars?
Yeah, I can certainly address that, and I appreciate the question. I will say that I do believe that we are taking the necessary steps. I try to stay in regular contact with the state auditor to let him as well as his staff know these are the things that we're doing. This is why we're doing it. I have every desire to be as transparent as possible. Again, the point is I want these dollars spent the way that they were intended and to maximize the effectiveness. And to do that and to allow me to sleep at night, I want to make sure that we are putting those safeguards. Even as we speak, we have part of our team meeting with an accounting firm that we have asked to come help us to make sure that the process we're putting in place specifically to wet funds is appropriate, that has enough of the safeguards that we need to ensure that it's effectively and legally being spent. And we're in constant communication. I talk with Kel Smith at the Community College Board probably every other week just to make sure that we're all on the same page. So to answer your question, we are taking those steps. I feel confident that our team is putting the right safeguards in place, and I think it's really going to maximize the benefit of that program so that we don't see that happen and that we're being able to help as many people and community colleges as we possibly can. Scott.
Announced the other day that the state has joined an immigration strike force to crack down on illegal immigration across the country and in Mississippi. How will this differ from what we have been doing?
So there is a 26-state memorandum of understanding in which we state our mutual goals and agree to provide resources to one another to help mitigate the flow of illegal immigrants into this country. Now, we all know that for the entirety of this country until the Biden administration, it has been the role of the federal government to secure our southern border. This administration, for whatever reason, has chosen to abdicate their responsibility to just simply not do it. And that's the reason we're seeing the kinds of numbers that we're seeing crossing the border. And as you talk to some of the Border Patrol agents, the lack of support by this administration is shocking. And as I have the opportunity to communicate with the governors of Arizona and Texas, Governor Ducey in Arizona, for instance, they're certainly the states that are bearing the brunt of this lack of focused effort by the federal government. But they're also the governors that are stepping up and trying to fill the gap where the federal government is just simply choosing not to do their job. Now, what role does there have been those who say, well, what does Mississippi have to do with border security and border safety? And the reality is, if you look at Mississippi, with I-10 crossing our state down in the southern part of our state, with I-20 crossing right here in the central part of our state, with I-59 going from basically New Orleans to Atlanta, as you can imagine, there are a large number of those individuals, some of whom are trafficking drugs, some of whom are trafficking humans, some of whom are violating other laws that we end up, and our law enforcement officials end up having to bear the brunt of the law enforcement responsibility as they come across our state. And so the 26 governors that have agreed to this have signed an MOU where we're going to collaborate, we're going to work closer together, we're going to identify state coordinators, and in our case it will be our head of Department of Public Safety, Sean Tyndall and his team, and we're going to do everything we can to reduce the flow of some of these illegal drugs. I signed a bill yesterday, Scott, you may have been there, with respect to having stiffer penalties for those drug dealers who knowingly lace some of these drugs with fentanyl, which has led to many, many, many horrible outcomes for kids around our state and really quite frankly across the country. Well, a lot of those illegal drugs are coming in across the border because it's so porous right now because of the lack of efforts by the Biden administration.
Earlier this week, you signed Senate Bill 2358 into law, and that allows state parties to set candidate qualifying fees. Do you have any concerns that political parties in the state could drastically raise qualifying fees, and that could choke some people out from running for office?
Well, I think what you saw, the bill that I signed gave the two political parties, or the political parties, the two major political parties, certainly the Republican Party and the Democrat Party, the opportunity, the ability to set what the filing fees are, but they also put a floor and a ceiling on how much that is. And so, for instance, the ceiling on any candidate that wants to run for governor is they can charge anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 for a candidate to run for governor. And so, no, I don't believe that amount of money is going to choke off potential candidates. The presidential races, they can charge the presidential candidates. They can charge up to $25,000. So that's the highest one, obviously. The highest state office is $10,000, and it comes down from there based upon the office. And so I don't anticipate that the filing fees themselves can now be raised to a level that's going to choke off any real participation from candidates that are serious about running for governor.
It's a video recently of drag racing in downtown Jackson. It's come to my attention that you're aware of that, living at the governor's mansion. You may have heard that. Can you address that issue and what can be done about curbing it with Capitol Police extending its patrols?
Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. I actually met with the commissioner just within the last week to have a broad conversation about a number of different things. You may remember that we announced, I believe it was early last week, that we had done a sting, a cooperative effort between the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics, Mississippi Highway Patrol, local law enforcement offices, both inside Hinds County and outside Hinds County, and made 49 arrests. And it just is shows our commitment as a state to make sure that we work very hard to get crime in the capital city under control. We as a state need a vibrant capital city. We as a Central Mississippi community and all of the bedroom communities that surround the city of Jackson need a safe and vibrant capital city. And unfortunately, we don't have enough Jackson Police Department officials and officers. You've heard me say this at least 5 times from this very podium at 5 different press conferences. I'll say it again. We got a lot of good men and women that work for the Jackson Police Department. We got a lot of good police officers that work for JPD. There's just not enough of them. I implore, I urge the City Council to invest more in hiring more officers. I believe that there was a story recently, literally very recently, of one of the command staff at JPD saying exactly that they need more officers. I understand they have fewer than 200 officers in Jackson Police Department right now. I think that's probably half what they need. Now, we're not going to be able to fix, we as a state aren't going to be able to fix that overnight, but what we are able to do, as you know, we're transitioning the CCID and Capitol Police into a real police force. We're in the process of interviewing and will ultimately hire a new chief. I had a great chief that decided to retire, Chief Byington. Super great guy. But we're in the process of hiring a new chief. We're in the process working with our legislative partners. We proposed a significant increase in the Capitol Police budget. They gave us enough money, we think, to hire approximately 40 additional officers, which would give us a 50% increase in the total number of officers. We're going to continue to build out not only the officers that are on the street, but also potentially build out an investigative staff so that we can investigate crimes that happen within the CCID. In addition to that, we worked with the legislature, and I know Lieutenant Governor Hosemann left, but we worked with the legislature, and he was a big proponent of this. They have provided additional funding this year to help pay for additional prosecutors in the DA's office, and they provided additional funding this year to help pay for a new judge in Hinds County to be appointed by the Chief Justice of the Mississippi Supreme Court. And so, again, these are all steps that we're taking. We recognize that we've got to get crime under control in the capital city. This is not a problem that is unique to Jackson. Most major cities around the country are seeing and have seen a significant uptick. I'm hopeful that the residents of the city of Jackson will continue to raise with their local elected officials, their members of the Board of Supervisors, their city council members, their mayor, how important this is that we get this under control. We are committed to doing our part. We're committed to doing even more than our part, and we just need the city to be a good partner. And I will tell you, I said this last week, within the last 3 weeks, I've personally met with the police chief at JPD, and I think he's well-intentioned, and I hope he's well-intentioned, and we're going to continue to try to find ways to work with him and his team, but they need more investments from the city to hire additional officers.
Have you seen the drag racers, the people, the motorcycles, the four-wheelers going through downtown?
I have not personally seen them, but given where I live, I have heard vehicles that are extremely loud, and I have heard gunshots while at the governor's mansion.
The Justice Department is expected to release a report critical of conditions at Parchment Prison. I don't know if you're aware of that report that is coming out or the steps that's been done to try to correct that problem.
Given the potential litigation that may come from that, I'm going to refrain from commenting at this time until I at least see the report. I have not seen it. And so I do know that we have made significant strides at Parchment in the last 2 years. Everything from significantly reducing the number of inmates at Parchment all the way to working with the legislature this year to get funding to increase the number of officers that we have, not only at Parchment, throughout our prison system. We know that personnel is an issue that we need to continue to improve. What we did this year is we got legislation which allows us to pay our starting prison guards a higher wage, and we've got more money now to hire more officers. And so we as a state recognize some of the challenges that exist and are doing everything in our power to very quickly solve those challenges. Thank you all for coming on. Again, I want to highlight this new app that individuals across Mississippi can use to try to match their skill sets, and because while we talk a lot about job creation, it's not just about jobs, it's about careers. It's about giving them long-term opportunities, and this is another step to do that. And certainly the signing of this workforce development legislation signifies that we as a state in Mississippi are committed to long-term career opportunities for our people. So thank you all. Have a great day.